Welcome to this video on using 3ds Max. 3ds Max is a modeling program, and so we're going to end up making a Rube Goldberg machine in the end. But our first objective, just to learn, get used to using 3ds Max, is to do this time for T lesson. You can follow along with the text, or I'm going to do a little video here to show you what to do. Now 3ds Max is a quite a complex program. And it's a little bit overwhelming. So open it up. 3ds Max is, just search for it, 3ds Max there in your drive here, or this is the symbol down here, right? So it's just got a big 3 on it. Open it up. I'm using the classic version, and we'll just make sure that we use the starting one here, not an outdoor, not a whatever, just this basic original startup, and we'll get going. So just close that up. So you've got your different windows here, okay, and we'll sort of work with them, but you can see there's top, front, left, and then this perspective view. And generally when you're modeling, you're going to work in these views here to model and then sort of see what it's looking like down here. So let's get going right away here. Let's actually create our teapot. Now they actually have a primitive for teapots here. So up here, there's a bunch of different stuff. If you click on this, this is your standard primitives. We'll look at some of these stuff after. But your standard primitives, there is various shapes, like a box. Let's just see what the box does. So if I click and drag, I'm basically dragging out the base of it, and then I let go, and then I just lift it up. Okay, so to do that again, just sort of delete this. Oops, to select it, right, you'll need to just make sure that you've got it selected and hit delete. There we go. And so if I did the box again, all I did is click and drag out the base, and then create the height. Just lift it up to create the height there. Okay, pretty straightforward. Now there is a teapot. Now they used teapots because it was a good thing for modeling and also doing materials. So it's sort of one of these basic primitives, even though it's not really primitive. I can drag in the teapot there, and there it is. Okay, moving it around, there is a move tool up here. So you can select and you can move it along the axes. If you grab near the middle, you can sort of move it in any dimension. When you are working in these, they're called orthographic views, you're limited by the movement. So in the terms of the front, I can only move it up or down, and then basically, I guess, sort of left and right here. Okay, same with the top. I can only move it, sort of forward and backward, and then left and right. Okay, and then in the side view, very much like the other one, just different perspectives. So I can make sure it's sort of on the ground, and whatever I need to do. Now, this object here, okay, has a bunch of properties. So if I click on this one, you can start to see that there's the radius, there's so many segments, and in fact, there's actually body parts here. Okay, and so what we're going to do is sort of play around a little bit with this. So it might be a little bit big there. So you can go in, and we're going to set that radius to about 6. So I can just type it right in. So the radius is 6. There it is. And if you want to zoom in on something, there's this little guy down here that says maximize viewport toggle. That will make it the full size. And then you can also zoom on it with zoom extents. And so whatever I had selected, it zooms in there. And we can bring it back to that 4 views right there. Okay. So feel free to sort of move around and see what's going. If I use the middle mouse button, I can zoom in and out. If I hold down the middle mouse button, I can pan the camera. And if I hold, Alt, I can rotate around it. So let me just make this bigger. So holding down the middle mouse button, panning the camera, zooming in with the middle mouse button as well, just scrolling it. And then if I hold Alt, I can rotate around and view it from whatever view I need to. Okay. One other thing too is if you want, this is on default shading, you can set it to wireframe so that you could just see right through it. So I think, where is that wireframe here? Bounding box, I guess wireframe. There's the wireframe there. Or go back to that one there. That's the default shading. Okay. Now it's obviously a little bit off the ground. You can move it around if you want. But down here, right, you've got your X, your Y, and your Z. So in this program, I believe Z is the vertical, so now it's on the ground, and then you could recenter it if you wanted, just by using these keys here. Okay, so it's centered in this world. All right, so there is our teapot. And you can change the name of your teapot, I think over here. You can change it. I believe you might, yeah, you can change it in here as well. So if you just want to call it teapot, which is fine, we don't have to one. Changing color, this is not really changing the color per se, but for our purposes, it will be. So you can just change it here. Okay, we're not going to add materials at the moment. You can figure out how to do that later, but you can just simply change the color here. Okay. Now what we're going to do actually is clone this and then modify the clone. So here's my teapot. If I go up to Edit, there is somewhere here clone, and so I'm going to clone a copy of it. Go OK, and just drag this one out. So it's actually right on top. You can see here I've got two objects now, so I'm just going to drag it over. So there's my copy of my teapot. Okay, like I said, we're going to modify this one, modify this into a cup. So let's just call this the cup. Okay, and we can get rid of some things. Okay, so for a cup, we're going to keep the handle, we're going to keep the body. We don't need a spout or a lid. Okay, so we kind of have a cup there. Let's make it smaller. There, that's looking better. Okay, and in fact, it looks reasonably like a cup already. We can add some modifiers to this. So that's sort of the idea here. And these are things you can play around with. And so I'm going to add a stretch modifier. Okay, so this will be able to stretch it up. There's lots of modifiers here. Easiest way to do is just start to type. And so it will find, so I just typed ST, there's the stretch modifier. And there's different things you can do. And you can play around with the numbers if you just sort of grab, right? You can see it squishing, okay, and then see it doing like that. We want to have it a little bit stretched vertically. So I think I'm going to do that 0.1, and then the amplify, you can also, how did you do that before? There's a way to just, I guess you just move it up, and then just sort of squeeze it in a little bit. I think I left it at 1 there. Okay, now you can play around and see what happens if you do the different axes and so on. We're just sort of stretching it vertically, not along the X or the Y, giving it vertical. And if you want to modify yours a little bit more, that's fine as well. I don't think you can do anything right in here. No, you can just sort of play around with this. You could drag it, but I guess not. Just sort of see what's happening here. So if you want to make it a little bit more angular, that's fine as well, as long as you put that one on. All right. So we've created basically our cup, okay? And now what we want to do is create a plate, okay? And so to do the plate, we're going to clone again. So I'm going to go back to, I'll go back to this one. Tools, Edit, Clone, and we'll make a copy. We've already got that, okay. And let's drag it over. So there it is. And so again, probably a good idea to change its name right away. So this would be our saucer, I guess. And not a flying saucer. Now this one, we don't need anything except the body, I believe. So let's just get rid of all of these. We'll keep that there. So we've got that. Okay, we're going to increase the number of segments. The number of segments will let it bend nicer, okay? The sections become smaller, allows us to sort of do a little bit more work there. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the stretch and a modifier again. So I'm going to go into the stretch, so go to my modifiers list, go to my modifiers list here, find the stretch again. So stretch, there it is. And so I'm putting a stretch on it. And this stretch, let me just see what numbers I found. So this time we're going to go -3. I'm just going to type them in. And, ooh, it looks nice there. And on here, the amplify, -20. Okay. And we're also going to add a taper one to it. So again, these would be ones you just have to play around with and see what they do. Okay, so I'm just going to find taper. There it is. So I've got my taper. Now the trouble is this order here. I'm going to drag this one down. The taper needs to be underneath the stretch for this to work. So if you're having troubles, it does not working out, make sure the stretch is on top, the taper is below, and the taper numbers that I need here, 0.95 on the amount. Okay, and then the last one on that curve, minus 1.68. And these are just numbers I found that worked. Maybe. Okay. Now the radius might have been the problem. So I'm going to go back to my teapot and let's reduce the radius here. There we go. Something looks a bit more reasonable. Okay, so set that radius to maybe about 2. That looks about good to put that cup on. Okay, and so now you might notice there's sort of black in here. I find that's just because we've got sort of shadows. So just hit the facets here, then you can see a little bit better. Okay. And there's your cup. Okay, so your cup and your saucer, I'll just sort of rotate around. So it's got a nice little look to it there. And you could grab your cup. So I'm just going to click on that. Make sure we're on the move tool, which it is, and maybe just drag it over. And voila. So this is a spot where you may just go to the top view or to toggle the quad view here. Sorry, where's the maximize? There we go. And so from that top view, I can just make sure it's nicely centered. Now, there it is. I can just bring it in. This might be a good time too to change up maybe some of the colors just so that you can see things a little bit better. Oops, hit OK. Just so you can see how they're sitting on there. Okay, looks pretty good. I could center it a little bit better. But that's the basics, okay? So we learned how to put this teacup in, learn how to model it a little bit. We'll end this video here, and in the next video, what I'm going to do is animate it. So we'll make it look like the tea sort of, pouring a cup of tea here. Okay, good.